Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Liv, and this is a very long overdue wrap up. If you've noticed, I've kind of been AWOL for a little while. Life said let's throw some shit and see what sticks, and it all stuck. So I haven't done a wrap up since February. So this is going to be everything I read from March until the end of July. There's good news for you and for me. One, this probably can't get too long because while I did read 11 books in March, I have only read 4 books since the end of March. I say shouldn't get too long because I did already film March's wrap up in the beginning of April. And we are just going to cut to past Olivia because I do think if I had to refilm everything, it would just be like my 7th mental breakdown today. You know what I'm saying? That's just how 2025 has been going. I really don't remember how long. Like, I haven't even started editing. I'm gonna sit down and do it today. So hopefully March isn't too long. But we are just gonna quickly cut to past Olivia while she tells you what she read in March, and then we'll come back to me to tell you the very few books I've read since March. So past Olivia, take it away. The first book I read in March, I read through the library, and that was Slewfoot by Bram. In this book, we are following Abatha in the 1660s as her father decides to sell her for money and send her to America to be married to a man she's never met before. She gets shipped off to New England, so she's living in Connecticut with this husband who's much more kind of like a father figure, and very early on in the book, something on their property starts coming alive and her husband passes away. After Abatha's husband dies, we are following her trying to really do whatever she can to not be sent to live with her late husband's shitty brother Wallace, who just kind of wants to control her and basically bring her into the fold and have her be an indentured servant so he can sell the land that she and her husband lived on. Abatha's not having that. She's like, actually, babes, it's my job to kind of like conduct things as my husband would want, so I'm gonna stay and I'm gonna run our farm. And if in a year I have completely failed and lost all this money and I haven't pulled in any crop, then you can sell the farm. But if I pay off this loan that you just took out without telling my husband before he died, we're gonna have an issue. And obviously, all while this is happening, Slewfoot, or Samson, is coming alive. He and Abatha meet, and they kind of have this friendship as Samson is trying to figure out what he was awoken for and what his purpose is and why he's awake again after hundreds of years. And Abatha is just trying to live her life without being owned by a man. I ended up giving this one a 3.5 star. I did really, really enjoy it. There was just like a little bit of like natives were colonizers too vibe that I thought the book could have done without, and you could have had the same story. So it just left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth, but I enjoyed the rest of what I read. The book I picked up after Slewfoot is American Street by E.B. Zeboy. This has been sitting on my TBR for at least 5 years, just waiting to be read. In this book, we were following Fabiola, or Fabulous, as after she was born in the United States, her and her mother quickly moved back to Haiti. She's now in high school, and the book opens with her and her mother on a plane moving back to the States, going to Detroit to live with her cousins and her auntie. But when they land in the States, her mother is instantly detained, and Fabiola has to make the rest of the journey to Detroit herself. And through this entire book, we are watching her as she is trying to find a new life in a country she doesn't know, and also try to figure out what is going on with her mother, how to get her mother back, and just like what she can do to bring her mother with her into this new world and this good life that they're supposed to be having, while trying to fit in this new town and meeting a boy and just learning how to live in a new country. Fabiola is given a dangerous proposition of how she can get her mother to return back to her, and it kind of drives the rest of this book of how is she going to find a way to get back to her mother and make her family whole again. I loved this. I gave it 5 stars. This is my second E.B. Zeboy, and there is just something about her writing that absolutely sucks you in. Usually I never give YA 5 stars because I can see the ending coming, and I should have been able to tell, but I was just so obsessed with figuring out this other side of the story and what was going to happen, and also like this fun thing that was happening on the crossroads by their house, and I just completely missed it. And it was just a really good read, and I'm glad I finally got to it. Next book I picked up was I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel. This was a 5-star prediction for me, and I was disappointed, to say the least. I'll start with saying that this book is written absolutely beautifully, and I think Sheena Patel is an excellent writer. Being said, I gave this a 2.5 stars. And really all I went into this book knowing is I stalk a woman on the internet who is sleeping with the same man as I am. And I just thought it was going to be a different vibe. But instead, I was just sitting here reading this book about how these women are obsessed with this insignificant man who's quite toxic and quite crappy. And I do get that commentary where, like, a man is good at one thing and he is suddenly put on this pedestal and all these women are supposed to want him. But really all I wanted this entire book was to see our main character just freaking stand up for herself, just do something. And that never happens. I absolutely hated the ending of this. It was not what I thought it was gonna be, and it was not the story for me, unfortunately. That being said, this does have very excellent themes. Obviously, like I said, we're talking about the pedestal that we put insignificant men on. We're talking about race and class and all of these different things. And I do think that Sheena Patel wrote them beautifully. I just do not think that this story was for me at the end of the day. Next book I picked up, it was one of those ones, can't believe it took me this long. Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This is my first R.F. Kuang, also, by the way. I know, crazy. Poppy War's been sitting on my shelf for a hot minute, if you know what I'm saying. This book, we are following our main character, Junie, who is a white woman who is always in kind of like this competitive nature against a woman who she went to school with, who right out of school got like a 6-figure book deal, had an amazing career, and Junie's first debut kind of flopped, and publishing's been really hard for her ever since. Her friend Athena still always wants to hang out and celebrate, and Junie goes, but just like has this inner dialogue of hatred and jealousy and negativity toward Athena. This book opens with Athena and Junie out celebrating because Athena just got a Netflix deal. Junie is sitting in all of these negative thoughts and this jealousy, but is pretending to have a great time, is pretending to celebrate her friend, and they go back to Athena's house where unfortunate circumstances arise and Athena passes away. And on Athena's desk is the manuscript for her next book. And Junie thinks, I could sell this. I could finish this. Athena's really secretive about everything that she ever does. No one is gonna know. And we spend the rest of this book following a woman absolutely justifying herself for being a terrible person. It was written incredibly. I gave this 4.5 stars. I was like talking back to our main character in the book. Like, I don't know if you can see. I was like writing notes. It goes through so much, like all of the book editing process and releasing, and it is written by somebody who has just been thrown into this world of publishing and has done it over and over and over again. This is when she's making edits to this book she's selling that is not hers, and her editor is also white. But it's this book that is just all about Chinese history and is really not what Junie's lane is, not the story she should be telling. And like in this bit where they're editing, it's like, instead we switch one of the white bullies to a Chinese character, and one of the more vocal Chinese laborers to a sympathetic white farmer. This adds the complexity, the humanistic nuance that perhaps Athena was too close to the project to see. And I was just like shit-talking this woman in the margins, and I was like, translation, you edit out the racist and you insert a white savior to assuage your guilt. Like, what are we doing here, babe? But I was just talking back in the margins this entire book. This was marketed to me as a thriller, and I did not get that vibe at all. I don't remember what I was saying, but I do remember that I gave this a 4.5. I think that if R.F. Kuang had just gone a little further with really kind of any of the aspects that had been appearing in this book and going on, it could have been a 5-star. This was marketed as a, like, satire and a thriller, and for me, like, it's satire, but it's also just, like, so real world that it's like, is it just something true or is it satire? And then the thriller part, maybe in the last 50 pages, but I wanted more of it throughout the book as well. But definitely really good, and definitely can't wait to pick up my next R.F. Kuang book. The next book I read was another YA, and that was Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. We obviously, as always, have to take a moment for this cover, for the gore, for the briars, for the beauty. I'm obsessed. This is such a beautiful book, and thankfully, I loved it. I gave it a 4-star. In this book, we are following two boys, Andrew and Thomas, as they are entering their senior year at the Wickwood Academy. They have been attending this school together since they were in, like, middle school, and they have truly been best friends since they met. Andrew has a love for writing twisted little fairy tales, you know, the exact way that fairy tales were originally written, just twisted and gruesome. And Thomas loves reading his story and illustrating what's happening. But something is different senior year. There's suddenly a fence around the woods that they always spent time in and they had classes in learning about nature. And Thomas is acting really weird and he's disappearing every night, and it turns out Thomas's drawings are coming alive and he's been sneaking into the woods every night to fight off the monsters and to save his school. Obviously, when Andrew finds out, since he is disgustingly in love with Thomas, he's like, well, I'm gonna help you fight the monsters too. And every night we are just following these boys fall into madness as they lose sleep, as they lose their sanity, and they spend every single night in the woods battling these monsters. What an incredible story. I had such a good time. I gave it 4 stars because I saw, like, every twist coming, but it was written so beautifully. I highlighted so much. There is illustrations of these monsters that these boys have technically created together because, yeah, it's Thomas's drawings coming alive, but Thomas has always drawn Andrew's art, and it's just, it was so good. I strongly recommend. It's a gay relationship. There is asexual representation. It was just such a good book, and I highly recommend it. The next one I read was a tough one, substance-wise, and just not usually what I'd be reading, so it was a bit for me to get into it, but that's Minor Detail by Adina Shibli. This book is told in 2 parts in 2 timelines. The beginning one being in 1949, a year after the war in Palestine, and after the displacement and dispossession of 700,000 people. And you are following these troops as they find a village of native people and kill them all except for one girl, who they then sexually assault and later kill. And then in the second half, we are following a woman who has become obsessed with what little she's found out about this woman's story, only because the day she died was 26 years later was the day this woman was born, and we were watching her become obsessed with finding out this woman's story and the lengths that she is going to understand what this woman went through and to see if she can find anything about this woman other than just one sentence in a newspaper. I think it's set in like 2015 maybe, so it's also following the current occupation and the things that Palestinians have to live with just to be able to travel within their own land and what is their own country. It was an incredible book. I gave it 4.5 stars. I think it's more of a historical, which is not something that I usually read a lot. And then there were just, like, these walls of text. And there was, like, one point for, like, 20 pages. Like, there wasn't even a paragraph break anywhere. And I was, like, I had the audiobook, thankfully. I was, like, I just knew it was important and I wanted to read it. But I also knew it's a bit out of my comfort zone and it's a bit out of the style of book that I do usually read. The next book I read in March is The Husbands by Holly Gramazio. This book, we are following our main character, who I cannot remember, Lauren. We're following Lauren as she comes home one night from a night out with the girls. I think they were at a bridal shower. She comes home and there is a man in her apartment She's a little drunk. She's freaking out. She's about to start throwing shit at him. He's like, baby, like, I'm your husband. What are you talking about, baby? Suddenly in her phone, she has years worth of photos with this man, including wedding photos. And she is freaking out, asks him for something, sends him up to the attic. And then a different husband comes down. And every time the husband goes up, a different one comes down. I was so excited for this book. This book was also a 5-star prediction. I was like, I am gonna love this. I did thoroughly enjoy it. I did have a really, really good time reading it. That being said, I only gave it a 3.5 star, and quite honestly, if it was just like 50 pages less, it could have been higher. But I finally just like reached the point of, I was like, when is this gonna end? Like, we keep just going through the cycle. Not a lot is changing. I was like, if we just took maybe took out maybe 50 pages of kind of more fluff and had the beginning and the ending of this book, it could have been a lot higher for me. That being said, I do recommend this book if the synopsis sounds interesting to you. If you want to read this commentary on kind of like scrolling through your phone on dating apps and being so particular about every little thing. Like, if a man's voice sounds a little weird, she sends him back to the attic. If a man really likes a hobby she doesn't like, she sends him back to the attic. And it's just like this being able to decide so quickly without even knowing someone whether or not you're compatible without even trying. I did really enjoy that aspect. It was a very good book. I do believe this is a debut, and I would pick up anything else that Holly Gramazio comes out with in the future. These next 3 I read for the Trans Rights Readathon. Hey baby, you want to come back up without being destructive? Okay. The next book I read was You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi. I love Akwaeke Emezi. I wasn't going into this with extremely high hopes, just because I'm not a big romance girly, but I did give this 5 stars. I also just realized that 2 books from now is going to be a romance, and I'm going to go, I didn't rate it, because I don't rate romance. Oops. This one I gave 5 stars. In this book, we are following our main character, Faye, as she is trying to learn how to live again and how to feel alive again. It has been 5 years since her husband passed away. They were high school sweethearts. They were disgustingly in love, and it was just such an unexpected accident, and she has just been grieving for 5 years, and she is finally ready to kind of put herself out there, see if she wants to love again, but really, we just start with the basics. She meets a nice man at a club, they bang in the bathroom. It's like the first page, not a spoiler. And later she finds herself kind of almost not in a relationship with one of this man's friends. They have sex a few times, they amicably part, they're not meant for each other. And one of his friends is very determined to get to know her, but learns about her husband and is like, we can just be friends, but I do, like, if it ends with something, I do want to pursue you, if that ends up being an option. Fast forward, Faye is an artist, and this character is an art collector, and his father is really good friends with an art curator back on the islands. And they have a woman drop out of their show. It's like a Black diaspora show. And he just automatically pitches Faye. He's like, we're friends. I can do that. Hasn't even seen her art. Pitches Faye. And they go and stay with his father, who is like a celebrity chef, has a giant house in the mountains. And Faye finds herself extremely attracted to this man's father, and wanting the one person she probably shouldn't have. And it's just her trying to find a way to deal with her grief while still fighting for the life that she wants and honoring the grief that she's dealt with. And it was so beautiful. And I gave it 5 stars. Her first interaction with this man's father, I was crying. I just really, really enjoyed this one. I don't want to say too much because it is just 200 pages and you should read it for yourself. But I had a really great time with this, and just,
Okoye Emezi for me is 3 for 3, and I love their writing, and I just want to read everything that they ever put out. They are just so good. They are one of my favorite authors. The next book I read was another YA. I guess this is also a romance that I rated, but it's Most Ardently by Gabe Cole Novoa. Macmillan has a bunch of like remixed classics that are YA. So there's like Little Women, and it's a black family instead. What else is there? There's like a Romeo and Juliet one, A Secret Garden, My Dear Henry, which is a Jekyll and Hyde one, The Great Gatsby, and all of them are just remixed, so they're a little more diverse. Whether it's in sexuality, race, identity, it's mixed or remixed, and I had such a fun time with this. This is obviously a Pride and Prejudice retelling. We are following Oliver Bennet as he meets Darcy. Obviously, I will say this book often is misgendering and dead naming our first character. It is, the 1800s, and they are only out to one sister and two friends. So the author did put, the nature of the story means that Oliver's dead name is used repeatedly. He frequently experiences dysphoria and is misgendered by characters in the book, though never by the narrative. So just something to keep in mind if you think that would be triggering for you. I ended up giving this a 3.5. I obviously really enjoyed Oliver's romance with Mr. Darcy. I do think the next time I watch the movie, I'm gonna be disappointed that it's not Oliver and Darcy. That being said, maybe it was more like I wanted more of an adult aspect. I wanted it to hop like more into dealing with this identity in 1813, and it was just here for a good, fun, cute time. So it wasn't exactly all the commentary that I wanted, but it still really was enjoyable. The next book I read on my Kindle, so I don't have it, and that is The Pairing by Casey McQuiston. This is the one I didn't rate because I've never read a Casey McQuiston one, but just kind of like general romance like this, I don't read it often, and I don't know what I like, and I don't know what I don't like. It's a fun popcorn time for me. They're my popcorn books. So I don't think I'm really going to rate contemporary romances going forward. Things like this that have larger topics of grief and just like heightened emotions or such, I 100% will. Like this, yes, is a romance, but it feels more literary to me. So I didn't rate The Pairing, but I had a damn good time reading it. The Pairing is following two characters whose names I cannot recall. What are tropes? What are tropes, she says. What are the tropes? It's a second chance romance. That's what it's called, right? The Kit and someone. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. We're following our two main characters as they grew up together, totally in love with each other, didn't confess their love until after college. Were together for, I believe, 3 or 4 years. They love food, they love wine, they love cocktails. They dreamed of opening a restaurant together. They flew to France for like a food and wine tour across like Italy, Spain, Rome, everything. And they break up on the flight there. Fast forward 3 or 4 years, vouchers that they got for this trip are going to expire, and they both choose, obviously, the last month that you could do it before the vouchers expire to once again try to go on this food tour that didn't end up happening because they broke up on the flight. At the beginning of the book, you're kind of following these two as they're trying to figure out if they can be friends again. They were friends their entire lives, and obviously they really hurt each other. The battery died. What was I saying? It quickly turns into a game of proving that they are over one another, of who can hook up with the most hot singles in each city, and they're keeping a tally as they go. And then obviously discovering that the people they really want to be sleeping with is each other. And discovering kind of both sides of the coin of what really happened during this breakup, because they break up on this flight and they don't see each other again for years. They do not speak, they don't talk, they don't converse about anything. I had a really good time. It was really fun. I think following a book where one main character is a pastry chef and another is a sommelier was so fun for me as a restaurant girl. As the opposite of a sommelier, not the opposite, the beer version is Cicerone, and I've had to take some of those, but I'm not nearly as certified. I will quite literally never care about beer enough to go take an oral exam. But seeing all the sides of this industry that I obviously know very well and am far too acquainted with, if we're being honest, was really fun for me. Switching between the perspectives and I'm sorry, I have to look at our main character's name. I can't keep pretending that everything is hunky-dory until I remember. Okay, Theo has, like, especially her perspective, the way she's talking about the flavors of the food and everything. Oh, it was so fun. It was so good to read. I loved it. I went and read a bunch of reviews for this book because I was like, I'm thoroughly enjoying this. It seems to be everyone's, like, least favorite Casey. And the biggest complaint that I saw was, like, no one is having, like, sex. Like, that's not how, no one's doing that. And I was honestly dying laughing because, like, the first job I ever had in a restaurant, I was, like, shook because I didn't even have the word for demisexual yet. And everybody on the staff was just sleeping with each other, and it was such a culture shock for me. And I do think that that is a common thing, like, across the restaurant industry in more than just our country. So to me it made perfect sense because they're meeting all of these like-minded industry people. So I don't think it was that unrealistic, but I do see how if you've never worked in a restaurant and you, like, immediately just, like, had a 9 to 5 or, like, didn't have to worry about having money to live, like, while in college, I can see why you would be like, that's unrealistic, that doesn't happen. But honey, that be happening all the time. But that was the biggest complaint I saw about that book. I would say one of my least favorite tropes in any book, it's not like a romance trope, is kind of something that's going on with Kit and Theo. Whatever it is, shut up. What was I saying? Not really a romance trope, but just a trope in books in general that I do not like. I think is very prevalent in Kit and Theo's story, but since you as the reader don't know what's happening, it did not bother me at all. I don't know if that means I'll pick up another Casey. I have One Last Stop on my shelf, and I have, quite honestly, no desire to read it. The only reason I read The Pairing is because someone I work with kept saying, Olivia, you have to read it, Olivia, you have to read it, and every time I came in for a shift, said, did you start it yet? Did you start it yet? Did you start it yet? And I just started it so I could say, yes, I started it. So that's why I picked up that book. All right, and my last book is only available on Kindle Unlimited. And I am going to say, if this little short story interests you, please go pick it up. That is Rotor by Slater Ross. Slater is just one of the sweetest, kindest, genuine humans that I have ever met in my entire life. We met, like, probably almost 10 years ago, like 8 or 9 years ago, and he is just such a sweet human. And so if you like weird short horror, I would really recommend picking up this short story. Slater has a book called Becoming that I believe is coming out this year or next year. And this was just a little short story he published in the meantime. I gave it 5 stars. I'm not going to tell you a lot about it because it is 29 pages long. It is available on Kindle Unlimited, but if you want to, and you should, it is literally 99 cents. So if you want to support one of my friends and just spend 99 cents, which in this economy is nothing, please do so. I will link the book in the description. But all I'm going to tell you about it is we are following this young schoolgirl, and she is at recess, and she is obsessed with sticking her fingers in the wormholes outside. And one day she just gets really engrossed in the wormholes, and what happens from there, I am not going to tell you. The fact that, like, I've read Slater's writing before, I know him, I had no idea where this little story was going to go, and I never would have guessed it. It was so fun. It was such a good little read. I literally read it out loud in dramatic reading to my roommates because we love Slater in this household. but it was so fun. So I do strongly recommend you pick it up. I truly cannot tell you anything else about it because it is so short and you should experience it for yourself. Slater, if you see this, I love you and I miss you, brother. All right.
Okay, past Olivia, thank you so much. March was pretty good. We had a few 5 stars. I had a short story by a friend come out, and I was having a grand old time. The grand old time ended very quickly. I read 2 books in April where I was planning on doing an entire themed vlog because I had a bunch on my TBR and I was trying to read down my TBR. I'm sure you'll be able to tell the theme, but that was Carmilla and So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. Carmilla, I think I had a bit of a devastating time with. For those of you who don't know, this is like the first vampire book, or like one of them. It came out in 1872. And I just remember being really hyped for it because everyone's like, oh, the LGBTQ themes, they're so good, blah, 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 blah. And I wasn't thinking of that in this being a product of its time of 1872. And I finished this book and I was like, oh my god, all of the LGBTQ themes were just this woman's internalized homophobia of being like, that woman's stunning and I'm fucking disgusting for thinking that. Which does make sense, but I just think I was reading it and I was like, why? Also, unfortunate for me, I decided to read the introduction. I didn't finish the whole introduction because they did in fact decide to tell me what was going to happen in the entire book. So I also just think I went into this a little salty. I gave it 3 stars. I think I said that. Maybe one day I'll reread it with the right expectations. Who's to say? Next, I read So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. Yes, it was the vampire themed vlog that never was, unfortunately. I do still have the footage. Maybe I'll finish it one day. But I also think I didn't like either of these, so the start of that video is just me hating on books. I give this one 2.5 stars. We're following 2 friends who have known each other since high school. It is one of their birthdays. They're having a get-together. One of them's like a really wild one. One of them has taken a lot of the safe choices in life, is in a relationship with a husband who really probably doesn't give that much of a crap about her. And it started off strong. There was a lot that I was highlighting that I liked about the friendship in the beginning, and then at the end, I was like, are you 2 even friends? Like, neither of you can communicate with each other very well. Neither of you think very highly of each other. And you just continuously have made the stupidest decisions you possibly could in this situation. And it just was not for me. Which was a bummer because I gave Such Sharp Teeth 5 stars. That was such a good book for me. This one was 2.5. There was probably some other reasons why I didn't like it, but it was 2.5 stars and I read it a few months ago. So it's kind of just like gone out of here. Next, I picked up the only book I picked up in May, and that was Four Aunties and a Wedding by Jessie Q. Sutanto. I think maybe I was also trying to do another video while just like stuck in this life rut of not having the motivation to do anything. This is a sequel to Dial A for Aunties, which is about a young woman who's like in her early 20s and her aunties, who in the first book someone is like accidentally dead and they're kind of like weekend at Bernieing this corpse around a wedding that they're working. In this book, it is our main character's wedding. I gave this 2.5 stars too. If we're being 100% honest, I don't remember why I rated this so lowly. I think there was a lot of miscommunication that I wasn't down with, and I do just think like this time around the vibe didn't work for me. I think, again, like making some silly decisions that like we should know better by now, you know, but just wasn't for me, and I really wished it was. I don't know if I'll read the next one. I loved Vera Wong, and I do have the sequel to that, so I'm hoping it goes better for me this time. And then the last book that I read, I started at the end of June and finished in the beginning of July, was Wild and Wrangled by Lila Sage. I don't rate romances, but I did have a really good time reading this one. This one is the final book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series, and this one, the trope, I guess, is second chance romance. I don't know a lot of romance tropes. I did have a lot of fun reading this one. I love any of these books that have the little girl Riley in it, and this one is following her mom. So that was a really fun time for me, but again, I don't rate romance books. So as you can see, since I haven't been having that good of a time with books recently, I haven't been that motivated to read. I do have a vlog coming soon that I'm starting after I finish this of trying to catch the heck up on my Goodreads goal. I'm sure this was a chaotic one, jumping from past Olivia to me, who is not in a good space, both physically and mentally, and hated most of these. Maybe a wild jump. I don't know. I'll figure it out when I edit it and see what it looks like. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you soon with a vlog that hopefully has a 5-star and a better mood for me. Thank you for watching.
Yeah, it's March's Reads. Yeah, how many books did you read in March? No comment.